All right, guys, so let's talk about the supplements that I take, right? So there's a bazillion supplements out there. There's a lot of good ones. I have tried to keep mine relatively minimal for a couple of reasons. Number one, it can get really, really expensive if you take a ton of supplements. And I've tried to include supplements that work synergistically with natural treatments to improve your health, like dry needling, exercise, eating well, joint manipulation, right? All of these are natural substances that are either in the food that we eat or already in our body. And the deficiency of these substances causes massive, widespread problems throughout the entire body. And the vast majority of people are deficient in these things, or they don't know about them, right? So remember, in the nutrition class, we'll go over all this stuff in depth as far as each of the supplements and exactly how we think they're working and all this stuff. But this is just a really quick rundown just for the intro class for what I take. I've got the information in here, you guys, for where to get them, how much I take, right? So I'm not telling you guys what you should take, but I'm just telling you what I should take, right? So every individual person is going to be different, and this is why the genetic and epigenetic testing and the blood testing, genome testing, epigenome testing is so important, because we have the ability in 2024 to know exactly what our individual body is made up of, and then we can work from there with educated hypotheses about what we need to do to improve our individual health, right? So remember, the RDA is a estimate taking basically everybody within 20 or 30 years of your age, and in whether you're a male or female, and just averaging that out. So that is a huge average, right? So what we want to do is specifically figure out what we got going on and then do stuff specifically for us. But this is what I take, right? And again, this is from the most up-to-date literature that I've found. These are from people that I've listened, recommendations from medical doctors and osteopaths that I've listened to speak for hundreds of hours on podcasts, right? So I take this stuff. I feel way better when I do. I've tried not taking it. I don't feel as good when I don't take it, right? So I definitely notice a difference, and I'll tell you guys a couple of cool stories from some of my past students that have started taking some of these things and had some amazing improvements, right? So we'll also go over where to get these vitamins, right? So most vitamin companies, I think, are mostly selling expensive pee, right? You need to know that they're being third-party tested and that the third parties are legitimate companies. So I've done my own personal research on these companies. There's a lot of supplement brands out there that are good, and there's a lot that are bad, right? So if you're going to use a supplement brand, I would just recommend that you do your own background research and make sure that make sure what you're buying is actually what they're telling you you're buying. Okay, so I've included the company names, you guys. If you click on the link of the website, or if you click on the name of the supplement at the top, you'll get the link of the website to where I get them from. And then I've also included the Thorne Pro program. So I just found out about this a couple months, you guys. So as a doctor of physical therapy or as any other medical practitioner, Thorne will give you a pro program. It's like the things that I get with my professional fly fishing licenses. I get pro deals on some clothing companies and stuff like that. It's the same. Thorne does the same thing for medical practitioners, right? So if you sign up with Thorne on their website for their medical practitioner program, you'll get 50% off their vitamins, and you can give some of your discount to patients, I believe. So that's a great resource. So I have that link on the website up there. So first one, nicotinamide mononucleotide, NMN. This is one of my favorite supplements, you guys. And this is one, it's infuriating and really cool at the same time. So NMN, again, remember, we'll go over this stuff in depth in our nutrition class. This is just a very brief rundown. So NMN, nicotinamide mononucleotide, is the first molecular precursor to NAD+, which is what happens inside of our mitochondria, the citric acid cycle or the Krebs cycle. Remember, NAD+ gets converted to NADH. When that happens? The NAD plus spits off an electron. That's what gives the NADH, right? And then our body uses electrons from that conversion from NAD plus to NADH, and it uses it to create ATPs, right? So if we don't have enough NAD plus in our cells, we can't make enough ATPs and we go into energy deficiency. One of the things that researchers like David Sinclair at Harvard have looked into very, very heavily is what happens to cells in general as we age and how can we combat that, right? So one of the things that people like David Sinclair has found is that at about my age, I'm 41, at about the age of 40, your NAD plus levels inside your cells start to go downhill until you die, right? Less NAD plus, less ATP, less energy, the less your body and brain are going to be resistant to disease, and the worse they're going to fight them off, right? So the more energy you have, the more resistant to disease you are, and the better you fight things off. So NMN is just a B vitamin derivative. It's in every cell of the body. Cyanide works on NAD plus, so cyanide, basically instant death, blocks your NAD plus pathways in your cell. NMN does the exact opposite, so I figure the opposite of instant death is good. They've done really, really cool mice studies on this stuff, you guys. Mice live longer when they take NMN. They have decreased inflammation. They have improved cellular homeostasis. It's a totally safe supplement as far as I've been able to find in the literature, right? So one thing to remember is a lot of the time when they dose animals in the testing, they give animals a far higher dose than they're willing to give humans, right? So they haven't found any lethal level that's anywhere close to the, I don't know if they've found a lethal level at all. Again, it's a B vitamin derivative. It's a first molecular precursor to NAD plus. You take NMN within a couple of weeks, it's been shown that our NAD plus levels go up in the cells, which gives our cells more energy. It's a great, great supplement. One real quick story about this one. I had this awesome athletic trainer in my class down in Florida, and it was the first person that I thought had an allergy in one of my classes. I've been teaching dry needling for about 6 years. I've been dry needling my entire medical career, 10 years now. So I've never had a patient with an actual allergy to the metal of the needle, although it's possible. This girl started getting bright white hives, not where the needles were, but elsewhere on the body. So I asked her, I said, "What is that something that you relatively commonly experience?" And she said, "Yeah, anytime I get stressed, when I was in grad school and I was going to take a test, I'd break out in these hives my whole life," right? So she was still in school at the time, and she asked me, she said, "Man, I don't have very much money, but what supplement would you recommend that I take?" And I told her I would try the NMN. She called me 3 weeks later. She said, "You're not going to believe it, but my rashes have stopped happening," right? So again, this is a very, very simple, clear sign that if your body does not have the base elements it needs, or if it doesn't have enough energy to do all the stuff that it needs to do, something is going to happen, right? So this is exactly the hives that this young 20-year-old girl was getting is exactly the same reason that a lot of people get Alzheimer's, multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's. It's just that individual's unique way of expressing that their body is in chronic sympathetic hyperactivity and that they have a problem, right? So all of these supplements improve homeostasis, give your body more energy, decrease inflammation, and just help your cells function better. Next one, remember, we'll go over all this stuff much more in depth in the other class. Resveratrol. Resveratrol is this, as far as the NMN goes, I take 1 gram a day. It's lipophilic. You want to mix it with some type of fat, right? Because it is lipophilic, it helps block the hydrochloric acid in the stomach and other things from breaking it down too much. It helps more NAD plus get inside the cells, right? Same thing with resveratrol. I take 1 gram a day. It's also lipophilic. Both of these things don't taste great, you guys, so I like to mix them with like chocolate milk or something. I put them in my smoothie in the morning, right? So resveratrol is a polyphenol. It's the stuff that's in grapes that they say some people say red wine is good for you, right? You have to drink a couple hundred glasses of red wine a day apparently to get enough resveratrol for it to be really significant. So I just take 1 gram of powder a day. I get both of those supplements from Renew by Science. Again, the link is on there. You can take both of them. 100 gram powder is the cheapest way to do it. You can also get them in capsules and stuff like that. And again, the link to the resveratrol and the nicotinamide mononucleotide on this site, you guys, is to a company called Renew by Science, but Thorne also sells a version called NR, nicotinamide riboside, which is the second molecular precursor to NAD+. We'll get into that in the supplement section. I'm not going to go over that right now. So as far as, this is tiny, you guys, as far as resveratrol goes, resveratrol is a very, very strong anti-inflammatory, right? So the same thing that exercise and dry needling and good supplementation and eating well do for you, resveratrol reduces the amount of pro-inflammatory markers throughout the body. So again, the most commonly spoken about pro-inflammatory markers in literature are the things like interleukin 1, interleukin 6, tumor necrosis factor alpha, C-reactive protein. All of these things cause more inflammation. And then there's anti-inflammatory cytokines like interleukin 17, interleukin 10, I think interleukin 22 is one of them. Anyways, resveratrol reduces the amount of pro-inflammatory markers. Chronic sympathetic hyperactivity increases the amount of pro-inflammatory markers. One of the hallmarks of aging is chronic body-wide inflammation, right? So if we can reduce inflammation, we improve the autonomic nervous system homeostasis, and we just have a better cellular environment and more energy for our cells to function properly. So the next one, you guys, is glucoraphanin. This is broccoli sprout extract. It's just natural broccoli sprout extract. There's something that needs to get converted. Glucoraphanin and sulforaphane are the two looked after compounds in this. So as far as I understand, you can't get this out of regular broccoli unless you cook it with mustard seed powder. There's some sort of enzymatic reaction that happens. So when you buy it from this company, it's already got the enzyme in there that you need. And again, glucoraphanin does something that dry needling does, it does something that exercise does, it does something that eating well does, right? So glucoraphanin, so resveratrol, which we just talked about, reduces pro-inflammatory markers. Glucoraphanin turns on an anti-inflammatory pathway, right? So resveratrols and NMN are improving mitochondrial energy and function, which help clean up the cell. And then we're also turning on a mitochondrial anti-inflammatory pathway called the NRF2 pathway. So we're turning on anti-inflammation and we're turning off pro-inflammation, right? So we're attacking inflammation from both sides. We're reducing pro-inflammatory markers. We're turning on anti-inflammatory pathways, which also help reduce pro-inflammatory markers. We're improving oxygen saturation to the cells in the mitochondria, which allow them to make more energy, right? So another really, really good one, totally natural thing. Next one, omega-3s, and again, you guys remember we go over each one of these in depth in the nutrition and supplementation class. Omega-3s, about 20 to 30% of our brain by weight is omega-3s. Not something that most people know, right? So by eating pro-inflammatory oils or oils and stuff like that that increase inflammation, like seed oils, canola oil, processed foods, all of that stuff increases inflammatory omega-6s if they have omega-6s in them, which decreases the amount of EPA and DHA that we have, right? So EPA and DHA are as effective, and most literature shows they're way more effective at treating cardiovascular disease than any prescription drug that we have on the market right now. Right, so let me just say that again real quick. Omega-3s are more effective at treating cardiovascular disease than any prescription drug that I know of, by a long way, right? It's really, really amazing. So they're very, very important. Again, if we don't have the building blocks to produce what 30% of our brain is made out of, if we don't have the building blocks that we need for our brain to remake the stuff that it's made out of, we're not going to be able to think and function our brain properly, which is going to lead to homeostatic dysfunction throughout the rest of our body, right? So nothing changes long-term significantly without the brain telling it to, right? So omega-3 is super, super important. Vitamin D, 95% of the US population is deficient in vitamin D. This is something we go over in depth. It's from the NHANES study. If you are deficient in vitamin D, you can't your body cannot function normally, right? Vitamin D is essential for things like insulin sensitivity, glucose metabolism, regular metabolism, homeostasis, all this stuff. So if you don't have enough vitamin D, which 95% of the country doesn't, you're gonna be sick all the time. And that's cold season, cold and flu season, you guys, has nothing to do with the temperature in the winter time. It has 100% to do with the fact that in most, or in a huge percentage of the United States, people can't produce vitamin D in the wintertime, and most people are just not outside ever, right? So if you're not getting vitamin D, your immune system and everything has no chance of functioning properly. That's another one I take. I put in some quick vitamin D things. Vitamin D is one of the ones, you guys, that does have some literature on overdosing. I've never read anything about people dying from it, but the people that do start to develop sometimes kidney and liver problems are the people that are taking 60 to 100,000 IUs of vitamin D a day, right? So your body can't produce that much. It just overloads it. Our body does have a reprocessing and recycling mechanism, just like it does for misfolded proteins and stuff like that, right? So I take 5,000 to 10,000 IUs a day. I typically take 10,000 IUs a day in the wintertime, and I'll take 5 in the summer. And I am outside a lot, you guys. I was a fly fishing guide for 10 years. I was outside for 14 hours a day. I feel better when I take vitamin D. My brain feels like it functions better, right? So I take vitamin D, 5,000 a day in the summertime, 10,000 a day in the wintertime. As far as I understand, no people are gonna have an issue with that, and some people could theoretically take more on a short-term basis, at least at the beginning, to give themselves a good base of vitamin D, right? Because human beings are meant to store vitamin D because we're used to, evolutionarily speaking, in the wintertime, depending on where you lived, you wouldn't be able to produce vitamin D, right? Magnesium, another super duper important one. About 70% of the United States is deficient in magnesium. Basically, most muscle dysfunctions have a magnesium deficiency correlated with them. Magnesium is involved in over 600 metabolic processes, neurophysiologic processes in the body. It's super duper important, right? So again, I put in here, I take 800 milligrams of magnesium a day. Magnesium citrate and magnesium glycinate are the two most bioavailable, absorbable ones. So basically, when you take magnesium citrate or magnesium glycinate, the biggest percentage of that magnesium actually gets converted into bioavailable magnesium, right? And if you take methylated forms of stuff, you're good to go right away. And then the last one I'm going to talk about here, you guys, methylated multivitamin. This provides all of the vitamins that you need in a bioavailable form already, right? So if they're methylated, that means that our body doesn't have to break them down any further to use. So instead of something like folic acid that your body has to break down a bunch because it's an alien foreign substance, it requires a lot more energy of our body to get to 5-methyl tetrahydrofolate. In this methylated multivitamin, it is in the form of 5-methyl tetrahydrofolate already, so your body doesn't have to expend any energy to utilize it. It's already in usable form. It's a hugely important factor, right? And again, we'll talk about that more in the nutrition supplementation class. So those are the vitamins that I take, you guys. I also test out some of the peptide therapy. BPC 157 and thymosin beta 4 are two that I use. We'll talk about those more in the peptide classes. We'll talk about some other stuff in there, but that is the stuff that I take. Other vitamins that I do talk about sometimes are like quercetin or other compounds. Quercetin, which is in onions. So if you eat an onion every day, you get plenty of quercetin. That's a very, very anti-inflammatory one. It's antiviral. It's good for COVID and stuff like that, right? There's plenty of other good vitamins out there, but those are the ones that I take.